this is an iHeart podcast.
The Girlfriends is back with a new season, and this time I'm telling you the story of Kelly Harnett. Kelly spent over a decade in prison for a murder she says she didn't commit. As she fought for her freedom, she taught herself the law.
He goes, oh God, Harnett, jailhouse lawyer.
And became a beacon of hope for the women locked up alongside her.
You're supposed to have your faith in God, but I had nothing but faith in her.
I think I was put here to save souls by getting people out of prison.
The Girlfriends, Jailhouse Lawyer. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Every case that is a cold case that has DNA right now in a backlog will be identified in our lifetime.
On the new podcast, America's Crime Lab, every case has a story to tell, and the DNA holds the truth.
He never thought he was going to get caught. And I just looked at my computer screen. I was just like, gotcha.
This technology's already solving so many cases.
Listen to America's Crime Lab on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Where's the best place to binge your favorite true crime podcast? On the edge of your seat or under the Caribbean sun on an award-winning Virgin Voyages ship? This October, set sail on the first ever true crime podcast voyage from Virgin Voyages. Catch live recordings at sea, meet iHeart True Crime hosts, enjoy Halloween-themed parties, and more. All aboard a kid-free, luxurious Virgin Voyages ship. It's like a floating 5-star hotel with plot twists. Book now at virginvoyages.com/truecrime.
The Stuff You Should Know guys have made their own summer playlist of their must-listen podcasts on movies.
It's me, Josh, and I'd like to welcome you to the Stuff You Should Know summer movie playlist. What screams summer more than a nice, darkened, air-conditioned theater and a great movie playing right in front of you?
Episodes on James Bond, special effects, stuntmen and women, disaster films, even movies that change filmmaking, and many more. Listen to the Stuff You Should Know summer movie playlist on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
BBC Studios.
Hey, I'm Maggie. Just a quick heads up before we start. The series does contain some descriptions of violence and deals with adult themes. Close your eyes. Hear that? Sleigh bells ting-a-linging in the distance. You look outside at the frosted street corners. As snow lightly falls on your mom's garden gnome. Inside, you're warm, happy. Maybe there's a fire lit in the corner. You're surrounded by people you love, clinking glasses in good cheer. Oh, don't look. Aunt Martha maybe had a bit too much to drink, but you know what? It's Christmas. It's the festive season, and everyone is entitled to a good tiding here and there. Okay, I admit, this is like a quintessential Hallmark Christmas. No one's Christmas is like this. My Christmas isn't like this. But it's kind of what I think about when I close my eyes and dream of the holiday. I think of warmth, friends and family, and a moment in time where nothing really matters but the present. This time of celebration and togetherness. I'm not a Christmas proselytizer by any means, but I have to admit, this idea of Christmas, it's nice. But the holidays can also bring up a lot of mixed emotions. They can feel lonely, isolating, especially if the worst thing imaginable happens to you just days before the holiday.
Anthony and I are sitting on the couch, and everyone's like watching TV and the Christmas trees in the corner. And I'm checking my Facebook.
This is Lizz Melgar Rose. She's celebrating the holidays with her husband and his family in the UK.
And there's these messages about how people love me and I'm they're here for me.
A few days ago, Lizz experienced a tragedy, a miscarriage.
It was really difficult. We were hopeful that we were going to have a baby, and it just didn't work out.
People back home in Texas must have heard about it.
I'm thinking, they know I've had a miscarriage, so they're sending their thoughts and love to me to make sure they know that I'm not alone or, that they're thinking of me.
But one message on her husband Anthony's Facebook catches her eye.
It was like, call me, there's an emergency.
Anthony gets up from the oversized red couch and goes into the kitchen. He makes a call.
I could hear before he closed the door him saying something about it's about my family or my mom or my dad.
Time stretches. What was likely a few seconds starts to feel like hours.
And then he comes back and he's shaking and he just looks like he's seen a ghost and he's just in shock. My first thought is my mom has died.
Anthony looks at her, unsure of what to say.
And so I'm like, what happened? And he can't even talk. And I get so frustrated because he's taking too long and it feels like it's been an eternity. And I'm like, just tell me what the fuck happened.
He can barely get the words out. Something horrible has happened. Their friend in Texas saw Lizz's parents' house on the news. Their brick bungalow swaddled in yellow police tape. Blue and red lights flickering in the cold night air.
And he said, your dad's been killed. And that is not what I expected him to say. So I said, what? And he said, your dad's been killed. And I thought, what happened?
You know that feeling when the pit of your stomach drops? You maybe hear a slight buzz in your ear. Your heart begins thumping against your chest. You can't focus on what people are saying. It's like you can't hear at all. That's how I imagine Lizz felt in this moment she heard the news. The moment her entire life imploded. Her dad, miles away from where she is now, has been murdered. She snaps out of the haze. There will be time to grieve, but right now, she needs answers.
I'm calling all these people. I'm trying to get a hold of my cousin. It's like 5 or 6 in the morning back in Houston.
She needs to talk to her mom.
I'm like, where's my mom? Nobody knows where my mom is. So I'm calling all the hospitals. She's nowhere. I'm calling the police. She's nowhere. I have no idea what's happened to her.
Sandy, Lizz's mom, has seemingly vanished without a trace. Where is she? What happened that cold night in December? And who killed Lizz's dad? I'm Maggie Robinson Katz, and from BBC Studios and iHeart Podcasts, this is Hands Tied. Episode 1, The Call.
A foot washed up, a shoe with some bones in it. They had no idea who it was.
Most everything was burned up pretty good from the fire, that not a whole lot was salvageable.
These are the coldest of cold cases, but everything is about to change.
Every case that is a cold case that has DNA right now in a backlog will be identified in our lifetime.
A small lab in Texas is cracking the code on DNA. Using new scientific tools, they're finding clues in evidence so tiny, you might just miss it.
He never thought he was going to get caught. And I just looked at my computer screen. I was just like, gotcha.
On America's Crime Lab, we'll learn about victims and survivors. And you'll meet the team behind the scenes at Courtroom, the Houston lab that takes on the most hopeless cases, to finally solve the unsolvable. Listen to America's Crime Lab on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Kelly Harnett spent over a decade in prison for a murder she says she didn't commit.
I'm 100% innocent.
While behind bars, she learned the law from scratch.
He goes, oh God, Harnett, jailhouse lawyer.
And as she fought for herself, she also became a lifeline for the women locked up alongside her.
You're supposed to have your faith in God, but I had nothing but faith in her.
So many of these women had lived the same stories.
I said, were you a victim of domestic violence? And she was like, yeah.
But maybe Kelly could change the ending.
I said, how many people have gotten other incarcerated individuals out of here? I'm going to be the first one to do that.
This is the story of Kelly Harnett, a woman who spent 12 years fighting not just for her own freedom, but her girlfriend's too.
I think I have a mission from God to save souls by getting people out of prison.
The Girlfriend's Jailhouse Lawyer. Listen on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Where's the best place to binge your favorite true crime podcast? On the edge of your seat or under the Caribbean sun on an award-winning Virgin Voyages ship? This October, set sail on the first ever true crime podcast voyage from Virgin Voyages. Catch live recordings at sea, meet iHeart True Crime hosts, enjoy Halloween-themed parties, and more. All aboard a kid-free, luxurious Virgin Voyages ship. It's like a floating 5-star hotel with plot twists. Book now at virginvoyages.com/truecrime.
The Stuff You Should Know guys have made their own summer playlist of their must-listen podcasts on movies.
It's me, Josh, and I'd like to welcome you to the Stuff You Should Know Summer Movie Playlist. What screams summer more than a nice, darkened, air-conditioned theater and a great movie playing right in front of you?
Episodes on James Bond, special effects, stuntmen and women, disaster films, even movies that change filmmaking, and many more. Listen to the Stuff You Should Know Summer Movie Playlist on the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, dog. Hi, dog.
I've come to England to meet Liz at her home in southwest London. It's a cold and dreary day, which is exactly what I think of when I hear the words January and England.
She brings in rocks and chews on them.
She brings in rocks? Really?
I don't know why.
Why? That's so funny. What type of dog is she again?
A Sholo is sweet. They call them a Mexican hairless.
Her name is Nola. Liz has Mayan roots, so this is a Quechua word, which means cute.
Very, strange animals.
I like her. I'm into her. She feels mighty for her size.
You can say the same thing about Liz. She's tiny with long hair dyed a deep purple, these big saucer eyes. And although she may be 40, she looks like she's about 20. But make no mistake, Liz is fierce. We sit on her couch, Liz wrapping herself in sweats and countless blankets, because again, it's January in England, and we begin chatting. When you think about your dad, what do you remember?
So he has this type of sense of humor, and everybody calls them Jim jokes because they're just so bad that they make you just, groan and say, oh my God.
We all know those jokes. Maybe you've told a few yourself. I know I have.
They're dad jokes.
And these groan-worthy Jim jokes were told to her countless times by her dad, Jim.
My dad was always pulling pranks and playing around. We always say that he was just another kid, which is why I had so much fun in my childhood, because I had someone else to play with.
Liz grew up in Houston, the only child to parents Jim, also known as Jaime or Jamie, and Sandy Melgar. When Liz thinks back to her childhood now, she can easily recall the good times.
We just had these adventures. There was a creek in the backyard. Sometimes it would flood if it rained a lot, and it would become this huge river, and there were alligators in there. We had this little boat, and we would paddle out there and just ride down the river for a little while.
You're not afraid of alligators?
No. They can't zigzag.
Meaning if one is chasing you, run in a zigzag. Hot tip, you're welcome, saved your life. Despite the alligators, which I think are way scarier than Liz is letting on, you can get a sense of what her childhood was like. Playful, fun, with ample time out in the warm Texas sun. And her two parents, Jim and Sandy, doting on her, wanting to give Liz everything they didn't have growing up.
I was an only child, so I probably was pretty spoiled. I didn't get everything I wanted, obviously, but it's not like I was lacking in anything. I'm grateful, and I feel lucky that I had the parents that I do.
Were you close?
Yeah, we were very close. We all had a really good and close relationship. I enjoyed spending time with my parents. I miss it.
I bet.
Yeah.
Jim and Sandy both had difficult childhoods. Jim grew up in Guatemala, coming to America when he was just 4 years old. His mother worked as a house cleaner, saving every penny to give her children a better life.
He would tell me stories as well as from when he was a kid to try and show me how good I had it. And I think at first I didn't believe him because they just sounded just so far from what I knew.
Like buying a glass of goat milk from a villager for 5 cents only when they could afford it, or flying to the States at a young age by yourself and sharing a cramped 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with your parents and siblings.
But yeah, it's kind of like, you have these nice stories, but they're kind of mixed in with a lot of trauma, I think.
Sandy didn't have it any easier. She was abandoned by her parents and dumped with her grandmother in Laredo, a small town on the border with Mexico.
She grew up incredibly poor.
Sometimes they didn't have food, sometimes they didn't have electricity or running water. They struggled a lot.
Sandy also spent time in and out of the foster care system, a time Liz says her mom doesn't like to remember.
It was difficult to be in these foster homes. You're thrown into these new environments that, you're just a kid, you're scared, you don't know what's going on.
And so I think she wanted me to have everything that she never had. And so she was determined to be just the best mom that she could be.
It was difficult for her.
But eventually, Jim and Sandy find each other. Fate, or the alphabet, bringing them together in a high school class in Houston at age 17.
So it was Sandra McCullough and then Jaime Melgar. So he sat behind her. And he would pull her hair because she had really long blonde hair. And he used to ask her out a lot, and she kept saying no.
Until Jim comes up with a brilliant idea.
He finally asks her to go to this huge mall in downtown Houston, which is called the Galleria. And there's a big ice skating rink in there. And so he says, some of my friends and I are going to be there. Would you like to join us?
A group thing. It will be totally relaxed. Sandy agrees.
And when she gets there, it's my dad and one other friend, and the friend shortly leaves. And they just ended up spending that evening together, and I guess the rest was history. They were inseparable after that.
They married and had Liz a few years later. Jim loved cars and music, his favorite bands being AC/DC, Black Sabbath, back when Ozzy was still in the band, to be clear, and Pink Floyd, a band Liz loves as well. Jim worked as a computer programmer for the Houston Independent Schools District, while Sandy was first a nurse, then later set up a medical billing company. From Liz's perspective, her parents always seemed to have a loving and respectful relationship.
And I know people probably don't believe me when I say this, but I never, ever, once in my entire life, ever saw them fight or yell at each other or raise their voices at each other. Never. I don't know how they did that because I can't do that.
Disagreements, according to Liz, were solved by talking things out calmly.
It was never like yelling or fighting.
Even modeling that behavior for her. One time, Liz says, she called her boyfriend stupid in front of her dad.
And my dad took me to the side and he said that it's really disrespectful and it might start a habit where you do that and you think you're just playing around, but then when you're angry, you're going to say it and you're going to mean it and you're not going to be able to take it back. So he always taught me how it was important to be very respectful in your relationships and be mindful about how you're talking to people.
I mean, a lesson for all of us.
I still struggle with this, but they had somehow mastered this and were able to practice it together. And, I think that's a testament to their relationship and to the love and respect that they had for each other.
Liz grabs her phone to show me a picture of her with her mom and dad.
We were taking a bunch of pictures together. I don't know why this is the only one I have.
This is the last time she saw her dad.
It's at departures in the terminal there at the airport. And it's just me in between my mom and dad, and they've both got their arms around me. I've got my arms around them. And, I'm about to get on a plane to England.
Liz was starting her own adventure, beginning a neuroscience course in Brighton with a focus on the brain chemistry of violent offenders. She'd long had an interest in true crime, something her parents thought was a little weird, the next step up from her passion for horror. Back then, true crime books were harder to come by than they are now.
Even so, Lizz's room was stacked with books on serial killers.
Well, I remember this moment, and then leaving and walking up towards the gate. I was sad to be leaving, but it wasn't as sad as it usually was because, I kept saying, we're coming back and we'll see them soon. We'll spend lots of time together and, yeah. I think I went into crisis mode, right?
Back in December 2012, on the night that she hears that Jim has been murdered, there are two questions crashing around inside Liz's head. What has happened to her dad, Jim? And where is her mom, Sandy?
I was able to it just feels like everything slows down and I'm, okay, what do I need to do? Step one. And then I just take it from there.
Step one, get from London to Houston as fast as she can.
My husband started looking for the flights.
But it's just before Christmas. Everything is booked up with people traveling for the holidays. Finally, Anthony manages to book them onto a flight. But it's going to take a while. First, they'll have to get to Paris, then on to Houston.
I remember sitting there just thinking, oh my God, I have this long flight ahead of me. I don't know, it was just very surreal. I felt like I was in a dream state and none of it was real. And I just had to get home.
Lizz and her husband, Anthony, had no idea what they would find back home. All they could do was literally sit and wait, with an in-flight snack or two. On the long journey, they prepare themselves for step 2. Find out what happened to Liz's parents.
A foot washed up, a shoe with some bones in it. They had no idea who it was.
Most everything was burned up pretty good from the fire, that not a whole lot was salvageable.
These are the coldest of cold cases, but everything is about to change.
Every case that is a cold case that has DNA right now in a backlog will be identified in our lifetime.
A small lab in Texas is cracking the code on DNA. Using new scientific tools, they're finding clues in evidence so tiny you might just miss it.
He never thought he was going to get caught. And I just looked at my computer screen. I was just like, gotcha.
On America's Crime Lab, we'll learn about victims and survivors. And you'll meet the team behind the scenes at Courtroom, the Houston lab that takes on the most hopeless cases, to finally solve the unsolvable. Listen to America's Crime Lab on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Kelly Harnett spent over a decade in prison for a murder she says she didn't commit.
I'm 100% innocent.
While behind bars, she learned the law from scratch.
He goes, oh God, Harnett, jailhouse lawyer.
And as she fought for herself, she also became a lifeline for the women locked up alongside her.
You're supposed to have your faith in God, but I had nothing but faith in her.
So many of these women had lived the same stories.
I said, were you a victim of domestic violence? And she was like, yeah.
But maybe Kelly could change the ending.
I said, how many people have gotten other incarcerated individuals out of here? I'm going to be the first one to do that.
This is the story of Kelly Harnett, a woman who spent 12 years fighting not just for her own freedom, but her girlfriend's too.
I think I have a mission from God to save souls by getting people out of prison.
The Girlfriend's Jailhouse Lawyer. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Where's the best place to binge your favorite true crime podcast? On the edge of your seat or under the Caribbean sun on an award-winning Virgin Voyages ship? This October, set sail on the first ever true crime podcast voyage from Virgin Voyages. Catch live recordings at sea, meet iHeart True Crime hosts, enjoy Halloween-themed parties, and more. All aboard a kid-free, luxurious Virgin Voyages ship. It's like a floating 5-star hotel with plot twists. Book now at virginvoyages.com/truecrime.
The Stuff You Should Know guys have made their own summer playlist of their must-listen podcasts on movies.
It's me, Josh, and I'd like to welcome you to the Stuff You Should Know Summer Movie Playlist. What screams summer more than a nice, darkened, air-conditioned theater and a great movie playing right in front of you?
Episodes on James Bond, special effects, stuntmen and women, disaster films, even movies that change filmmaking, and many more. Listen to the Stuff You Should Know Summer Movie Playlist on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're heading to my Uncle Jim's house.
Liz's cousin Marissa was there the day Jim was found, just before Christmas, December 23rd, 2012.
And I remember I texted him actually before we left the house saying, hey, we're running late. That was just a running joke, honestly, with us because he would, say that we were always late to everything.
Jim had invited Marissa and her family around to eat with him and Sandy. So Marissa, her mom Maria, her dad Herman, her sister Monica, her boyfriend Gerson, and their baby, Melanie, all squished together.
It's kind of embarrassing to say we fit 6 of us in a 5-seater car.
Somehow, Marissa finds enough elbow to text her uncle.
I will never forget telling my mom, I said, Uncle Jim hasn't texted me back. I said, oh, maybe he's busy. We're thinking maybe he's busy, he's grilling, he's doing something, right? And then I text him again. We're getting close. And again, didn't hear from him.
Jim and Sandy live in Laurel Creek, on the northwest side of Houston. Suburban in the way most American neighborhoods are. Think tree-lined streets, cookie-cutter houses, a lot of them bungalows, big garages and lush front lawns, and a bit fancier than where Marissa's family live.
We were kind of sitting there in the driveway for a little while because the neighbors, directly across from their house, they were out. And so we were just kind of sitting there laughing, thinking, how are we going to get out of this car without them, judging us?
Eventually, they get out of the car and knock on the door. No answer.
So I'm thinking, okay, well, let me call them.
No answer.
We tell my dad, hey, go check the backyard. They're probably outside. They're grilling. I kept thinking they're grilling.
Herman makes his way to the backyard, peeks over the fence, and calls back.
No, there's nobody out there. He said, I tried calling for my brother. Nobody's saying anything. I don't think anybody's in the backyard. So this is strange.
Even stranger, the garage door is wide open. Well, one side is. It's a double garage. Herman decides to have a look inside.
And I'm thinking, no, we don't break into people's homes. So let's wait. Then I started thinking, maybe they're taking a shower. Maybe, we got to give them some space. I'm sure they'll come out. But my dad was like, no, this is my brother's house. We can make ourselves at home.
Herman walks in, goes through the door in the garage that connects to the main house, and unlocks the front door, letting the rest of his family in.
That's when it just didn't feel right. Soon as my dad opened the door, I remember I put my arm up, towards my mom's chest, and I said, no, let's just wait right here.
But Herman ignores his daughter and turns back into the house. The rest of the family follow into the darkness. Every single shade in the house is drawn.
My dad started calling out, Sandy, Jim, we're here. And that's when we started hearing what I would describe like mumbling noises. We all stopped and we were like, wait, what was that?
It's a voice saying, help, help.
My dad, he sprang into action. He ran towards where the noise was coming from.
Running towards the back of the house, the sound of the cries becoming louder and louder.
I was terrified. I had no idea what was going on. It just kind of, I don't remember hearing anything when I was in the bedroom. It was just kind of quiet.
She goes through the bedroom and into the bathroom. Herman spots a brown satin chair pushed up under the handle of the bathroom closet, blocking it shut from the outside. He moves the chair and inside finds Sandy. She's dressed in a red nightie, black robe, and fluffy socks, lying on the floor. Her feet and her hands tied up. Herman and his wife cut her free and notice her soiled underwear as they do. It looks like she's been there for hours.
I'm standing there, all the commotion. I see Sandy. When I saw her, she was crying. She was hysterical. She was saying, "Where's Jim? Where's Jim?" I was standing there frozen. I think she was crawling or almost like dragging herself, asking, "Where's Jim? Where's Jim?" And then my mom trying to hold her back. No, like, don't go over there, or don't, just stay here. I start walking into the room a little bit more, and I turn around because the closet light was on, and I remember turning around. It was to my right.
Marissa goes back into Sandy and Jim's bedroom, where there's another closet.
And I look down, and I can see my uncle's legs, his ankles, and they were tied up with a gray, I want to say it was a telephone cable.
Marissa can't take it any longer. She needs to get out of that house.
I just decided, I turned around to head back out, and I bumped into, it was either my sister or Gerson. When I bumped into them, they're like, "What's going on?" I couldn't even talk.
She rushes outside.
The neighbors were out, so I was basically yelling at them. I was like, "Please call 911.
Frantically, she reaches into her pockets, her hands shaking as she calls for help.
And the operator answered, and I couldn't talk.
Can barely get the words out. The worst possible thing has happened. Marissa stands outside as the sound of sirens grow into a crescendo. The quiet afternoon twisted into a cacophony of alarms and shouting. The neighborhood lit up by the blue and red lights of the police vehicles and EMTs. The house soon swaddled in yellow police tape.
People going in and out. And so at one point we did get ushered out of the house. And so we were all just standing in the driveway, just waiting to be told something, honestly.
One of the officers warns the family that they'll need to be separated.
And so we went to different police cars and we sat there for what felt like forever.
And are interviewed one by one.
Today is December the 23rd, 2012, and this is in reference to Harris County case HC 12-176269. We're at Kelsey Meadows Court, and I'm talking with a witness. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to state your name for the recording.
Marissa Melgar Muku.
Okay. And today you came to this address
for lunch or dinner with...
Who lives here that you know?
My uncle, my aunt, and just them.
And what's their names?
Sandy Melgar and Jim Melgar.
Okay, and y'all were supposed to come here?
Marissa fills in Sergeant James Doucet of Harris County Sheriff's Office on everything you just heard. They were going over to Jim and Sandy's house for dinner. There was no answer, so they made their way inside. That's when they found Sandy. An ornate brown satin chair with curling white vines was wedged under a door handle, essentially sealing the bathroom closet shut, with Sandy inside, on the floor, hands and feet tied up, trapped.
She's laying on the bath. You could see her.
I could see her. I believe she was tied up.
Okay.
And then I got scared and I ran out and I told my dad, I was like, "We don't know who's in here."
Marissa tells the officer she left in a panic.
I was like, let's get out. I was like, I'm gonna call 911. And I'm running out, and my boyfriend and my sister are still, I think they were in the living room. And I ran out crying, screaming. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And they were like, what's happening? And they ran out after me, and that's when I called 911.
Now, you said her hands were bound when you saw her?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, they were, I believe that she was like this when she was saying, "Help."
Based on what you know, what's your feelings?
Shock.
Someone killed Jim.
What do you think? Any ideas?
I don't know. That's what I was thinking in the car. I was like, who the hell could have done that?
"13 years later, sitting in Lizz's living room in London, she's still trying to answer that question. What happened that night? Who killed her dad?
I don't even know when the shock actually started to wear off. I feel like it was years. Yeah.
shocking that her dad was murdered, and that it happened just as she started pursuing her own passion for true crime as a career, studying violent criminal behavior.
But that was very short-lived, because then my own dad was murdered and I had to go home.
Her life morphing into one of the murder stories that obsessed her as a teenager. How does it feel to have read so many true crime stories and then to have that happen in your own life?
It's insane.
It was so strange to become part of this genre that I had been so interested in.
Back in December 2012, Lizz had a realization. She was uniquely placed to find out who murdered her dad. She was studying criminology. She spent her teenage years devouring true crime. And who knew Jim and Sandy better than their only child? All that time reading about serial killers and murder could maybe be put to good use.
I'm thankful, though, that was my interest, because it helped me protect myself and my family.
It kind of helped me put the pieces of the puzzle together. Yeah, I think if it weren't for that strange interest or hobby or whatever you want to call it, things could have gone very, very differently.
It's a mystery she still doesn't have an answer to.
Too much for one person. There's a lot of guilt, I think, pushing me. I want to prove everyone wrong, basically, at this point. And I want answers.
When I first heard about Lizz's story, I was intrigued, and in a very small way could relate. Lizz and I are both daughters who searched for answers in the mysteries that embroiled our late fathers. Now, I just want to preface this by saying I have no idea what it's like to lose a parent in the way Lizz has. But this desire to understand what happened, I've been there. When my dad died, I found out he was caught up in a Philippines-based gold scam, causing him to lose the fortune he had spent his life building, leaving the rest of us with, well, nothing. But this answer wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to understand why this happened, and most of all, meet the man who took his money. So I got a plane to meet my dad's con artist, a 95-year-old white American, so I could ask him to his face if he conned my dad. If you're listening and your parent has been scammed of money and you have the opportunity to meet their con artist, I think my first recommendation is don't do it. I only say this because I really didn't feel any sense of closure. And I don't feel any nearer to understanding the mystery of why my dad fell for this ridiculous con. But this isn't my story. This is the story of Jim and Sandy Melgar and their daughter, Lizz Rose Melgar. A strange and beguiling case where a woman is found in a closet with her hands and feet tied, her husband dead a few feet away from her. To this day, Lizz says she can't be sure who killed her dad. But she's certain of one thing: the wrong person is in prison for his murder. You've been listening to Hands Tied, a new 8-part true crime series from BBC Studios and iHeart Podcasts. New episodes will be released weekly, so subscribe or follow on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out. If you like the show, please help us by spreading the word or giving us a 5-star review. I'm Maggie Robinson Katz, and the producer is Maggie Latham. Sound design and mix is by Tom Brignall. Our script consultant is Emma Weatherall. Production support is from Dan Marchini, Elena Boateng, and Mabel Finnegan-Wright. And our production executive is Laura Jordan Rowell. The series was developed by Anya Saunders. At iHeart, the managing executive producer is Christina Everett, and for BBC Studios, the executive producer is Joe Kent.
The Girlfriends is back with a new season, and this time I'm telling you the story of Kelly Harnett. Kelly spent over a decade in prison for a murder she says she didn't commit. As she fought for her freedom, she taught herself the law.
He goes, oh God, Harnett, jailhouse lawyer.
And became a beacon of hope for the women locked up alongside her.
You're supposed to have your faith in God, but I had nothing but faith in her.
I think I was put here to save souls by getting people out of prison.
The Girlfriends, Jailhouse Lawyer. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Every case that is a cold case that has DNA right now in a backlog will be identified in our lifetime.
On the new podcast, America's Crime Lab, every case has a story to tell, and the DNA holds the truth.
He never thought he was going to get caught. And I just looked at my computer screen. I was just like, gotcha.
This technology's already solving so many cases.
Listen to America's Crime Lab on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Where's the best place to binge your favorite true crime podcast? On the edge of your seat or under the Caribbean sun on an award-winning Virgin Voyages ship? This October, set sail on the first ever true crime podcast voyage from Virgin Voyages. Catch live recordings at sea, meet iHeart True Crime hosts, enjoy Halloween-themed parties, and more. All aboard a kid-free, luxurious Virgin Voyages ship. It's like a floating 5-star hotel with plot twists. Book now at virginvoyages.com/truecrime.
The Stuff You Should Know guys have made their own summer playlist of their must-listen podcasts on movies.
It's me, Josh, and I'd like to welcome you to the Stuff You Should Know summer movie playlist. What screams summer more than a nice, darkened, air-conditioned theater and a great movie playing right in front of you?
Episodes on James Bond, special effects, stuntmen and women, disaster films, even movies that change filmmaking, and many more. Listen to the Stuff You Should Know summer movie playlist on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast.